What makes us specifically human? The complexity of our language? Our problem-solving strategies? You may be shocked by my suggestion that, in some very deep sense, language and some aspects of human problem-solving are no more or less complex than the behaviors of other species. Complexity as such is not the issue. Spiders weave complex webs. Bees transmit complex information about sources and quality of nectar. Ants interact in complex colonies. Beavers build complex dams. Chimpanzees have complex problem-solving strategies, just as humans use complex language. Nor are our problem-solving skills so remarkable. There are human beings who have perfectly normal human mental abilities, but who nevertheless are unable to solve certain problems that a chimpanzee can solve. There is, however, one extremely important difference between human and non-human intelligence, a difference which distinguishes us from all other species. Unlike the spider, which stops at web weaving, the human child, and I maintain only the human child, has the potential to take its own representations as objects of cognitive attention. Normally, human children not only become efficient users of language, they also have the capacity to become little grammarians. By contrast, spiders, ants, beavers, and probably even chimpanzees do not have the potential to analyze their own knowledge. The clearest evidence for the role of color in sexual attraction among butterflies comes from studies of species in which males and females have distinctly different appearances. Obviously, to mate successfully, individuals must be able to determine whether other conspecific butterflies are of their own or of the opposite sex. The rest, it can be argued, is fine-tuning. A gorgeous butterfly species whose males and females differ in color is the little yellow, Urema lisa. Both sexes appear in identical yellow to the human eye, the shade being produced by pigments in the tiny scales that cover the butterfly's translucent wings. Males and females look quite different to butterflies, however, which perceive light at wavelengths beyond the human visible range and into the ultraviolet. Yellow wing scales on the upper surface of the male's wings reflect ultraviolet light, and those of females do not. On encountering a female, a little yellow male flutters about her briefly before landing and attempting to copulate. On confronting another male, he speeds away and continues his search. These simple behaviors allowed me to develop a test for the cues males use to recognize females. I first glued little yellow wings to cards and presented them to males. Males landed on and even attempted to copulate with female wings. But male study subjects paid scant attention to male wings similarly mounted. The next phase of the experiment showed that color was responsible for this choice. I prepared a card with two sets of male wings. A quartz slide that transmits both visible and ultraviolet light covered one set of wings, and a filter that blocks ultraviolet wavelengths overlaid the other. Males now attempted to mate with the male wings under the filter, wings that appear to be female. It comes near to stating the obvious that all languages have developed to express the needs of their users, and that in a sense, all languages are equal. All languages meet the social and psychological needs of their speakers, are equally deserving of scientific study, and can provide us with valuable information about human nature and society. There are, however, several widely held misconceptions about languages which stem from a failure to recognize this view. The most important of these is the idea that there are such things as primitive languages, languages with a simple grammar, a few sounds, and a vocabulary of only a few hundred words, whose speakers have to compensate for their language's deficiencies through gestures. Speakers of primitive languages have often been thought to exist, and there has been a great deal of speculation about where they might live and what their problems might be. If they relied on gestures, how would they be able to communicate at night? Without abstract terms, how could they possibly develop moral or religious belief? In the 19th century, such questions were common, and it was widely thought that it was only a matter of time before explorers would discover a genuinely primitive language. The fact of the matter is that every culture which has been investigated, no matter how primitive it may be in cultural terms, turns out to have a fully developed language, with a complexity comparable to those of the so-called civilized nations. There are no Bronze Age or Stone Age languages. Humans couldn't always easily produce F and V sounds, according to a surprising new study. The reason we can now enjoy words like flavor and effervescent, say the researchers, has to do with changes to the ancestral human diet and the introduction of soft foods, a development that altered the way we bite, and by consequence, the way we talk. Human speech involves all sorts of wacky noises, from the ubiquitous M and A sounds found in virtually all languages to the rare click consonants expressed in some South African dialects. Anthropologists and linguists have traditionally assumed that the inventory of all possible speech sounds used by humans has remained unchanged since our species emerged some 300,000 years ago. But new research published today in Science is challenging this long-held assumption. An interdisciplinary research team led by Damien Blasi from the University of Zurich is claiming that F and V sounds were only recently introduced into the human lexicon, emerging as a side effect of the agricultural revolution. These sounds, which are now present in the vast majority of all human languages, are what linguists call labiodental consonants, sounds produced by pressing our upper teeth to our lower lip. Here's the story as presented in the new study. Around 8,000 years ago, as humans transitioned from predominantly meat-eating lifestyles to agriculture, the foods our ancestors ate became softer, which had a pronounced effect on the human bite. Instead of the edge-on-edge bite exhibited by hunter-gatherers who had to tear into tough meat, agricultural humans retained the juvenile overbite that usually disappears by adulthood. With the upper teeth slightly in front of the lower teeth, it became much easier to make labiodental sounds. Gradually and quite by accident, these sounds were integrated into words, which eventually spread across time and space, most notably within the last 2,500 years. Anger is an emotional state that varies in intensity from mild irritation to intense fury and rage, according to Charles Spielberger, a psychologist who specializes in the study of anger. Like other emotions, it is accompanied by physiological and biological changes. When you get angry, your heart rate and blood pressure go up, as do the levels of your energy hormones and adrenaline. Anger can be caused by both external and internal events. You could be angry at a specific person, such as a coworker or supervisor, or event, a traffic jam or a canceled flight, or your anger could be caused by worrying about your personal problems. Memories of traumatic or enraging events can also trigger angry feelings. The instinctive, natural way to express anger is to respond aggressively. Anger is a natural, adaptive response to threats. It inspires powerful, often aggressive feelings and behaviors, which allow us to fight and to defend ourselves when we are attacked. A certain amount of anger, therefore, is necessary to our survival. On the other hand, we can't physically attack every person or object that irritates us. Laws, social norms, and common sense place limits on how far our anger can take us. Being funny is possibly one of the best things you can do for your health. You can almost think of a sense of humor as your mind's immune system. People at risk for depression tend to fall into depressive episodes when exposed to some kind of negative stimuli, and afterwards, it becomes easier and easier for them to relapse into depression. However, reframing a negative event in a humorous light acts as a kind of emotional filter, preventing the negativity from triggering a depressive episode. Humor doesn't just guard against depression, it also improves people's overall quality of life. Researchers have found that people who score highly in certain types of humor have better self-esteem, more positive affect, greater self-competency, more control over anxiety, and better performance in social interactions. Not all kinds of humor are made equal, however. In the same study, the researchers identified 4 types of humor: affiliative humor, or humor designed to strengthen social bonds; self-enhancing humor, which is akin to having a humorous view of life in general; aggressive humor, such as mocking others; and self-defeating humor, in which individuals encourage jokes that self-deprecate or have themselves as the target. The positive contributions mentioned above only occurred when individuals scored highly in affiliative and self-enhancing humor, while aggressive and self-defeating humor was associated with poorer overall well-being and higher anxiety and depression. So when cultivating your sense of humor, it's important to strive for the right kind. Besides, it's a crummy thing to make fun of others anyhow. In addition to working as a mental immune system, research has shown that humor can actually improve your physical immune system. Laughter can also improve cardiovascular health and lowers heart rates, blood pressure, and muscular tension. Aside from improving your health, laughter can be a productivity tool as well. A study from Northeastern University found that volunteers who watched a comedy were measurably better at solving a word association puzzle that relied on creative thinking, as compared to control groups that watched horror films or quantum physics lectures. Another study measured people's performance on a brainstorming task and found that participants who were asked to come up with a New Yorker-style caption generated 20% more ideas than those who did not.